I'm Sherrill and welcome to my sewing room. A while back I had a viewer make a request for me to share with you some of the things that I have made. I have made so many things, it was really hard to pick certain ones out to show all of you. Unfortunately, a lot of the ones I really liked, I gave away as gifts to family and friends. But I have kept a few of my quilts that I'm going to share with you now. This one here started out as just a practicing project for learning how to perfect the half square triangle. I spent a summer just practicing all kinds of different ways to make a half square triangle. I had so many half square triangles left over that I decided to make a quilt out of them. And as you can see, they were coming out of my ears. I took those half square triangles and also turned it into pinwheel shapes in each corner. So this was a very tedious project, but I sure learned a lot about half square triangles. This is an applique quilt. It was my very first attempt at applique quilting, and I started quilting close to 20 years ago, and I'd only been quilting a few years when I decided to try it. And I got this pattern out of a magazine. I don't remember the name of the magazine, and I wish I could give the quilt designer credit. So whoever you are, I'm sorry I don't know who you are, but I would love to give you credit for this beautiful design. All of these pieces were cut separately. All of these flowers, the vines, the basket here, were cut out separately, and you had the choice of either hand quilting them on by using little tiny hand stitches, or you could do a machine quilt stitch, which is what I decided to do. But what I did that was different was that I had cotton batting in the back of the quilt underneath, but I also, under every little piece, added an extra layer of polyester batting to make it look puffy. So if you were standing right next to it right now, I know it's hard to see on camera, it would look like it's popping out at you. So I was very proud of this one. It was my very first attempt. I love panel quilts, and I also love roosters. And so this piece here is one piece of fabric, and I added on this little border and this border and these little diamond shaped patterns up there. I also did that little puffy trick on this one too to make it look like it was popping out at you. I call this one my Americana quilt. I had the fabric for years and just loved it, didn't know what I was going to do with it. And about 10 years ago, I finally put it all together, and I just threw some blocks together, and this is what I came up with. I really enjoyed this quilt. It has that very early American feel to it. This one I'm really proud of. It was my very first attempt at making a Christmas quilt. The fabric right here inside of the squares came on one panel piece of fabric. I don't know where I got the fabric or how it got into my stash of fabric. It could have been my mother's and she gave it to me, I'm not sure. And it was well over 20 years ago that this fabric was purchased. So I cut the fabric out, stitched it into this attic window quilt block style. When you look at it, you feel like you're looking through a window into someone's house, and it's telling the story of a night before Christmas. I really like this quilt. This is my bird quilt. Again, it started out as a small piece of fabric with a bunch of birds all over it. It was a panel fabric. I cut the squares out and put them inside of each of the blocks and just use the colors that were in the blocks to go around the blocks. I love this quilt. I love the quilt, the colors I should say. They're very soft and soothing. This one goes all the way to the floor. You can't even see the whole thing. I actually took this to a long arm quilter and had her do all of the quilting stitches on it, and it is just beautiful. Another one that I'm really proud of. This is one quilt that I had the most fun making over all my quilts I've ever made. I just love this country farm look, and how I was introduced to this was I used to belong to a quilt group when I lived somewhere else, and the head of the group, her name is Jan, introduced us to this book here. It's called Farm Girl Vintage by Lori Holt of Bee in My Bonnet. This quilt was really a lot of fun. There were dozens of different blocks in there, 6 and 12-inch size, and we just all picked what we wanted to make, and we could just make anything, whether it was a pot holder, a tablecloth. I chose to make it into a quilt. I also took this to a long arm quilter to have her do all of the stitching on it. Again, this was a blast. This is a quilt that I didn't make, but it was made by my mother and her grandmother. My mother was about 12 years old when she made it, and this was made in the mid-1930s. Every Sunday when they went to church, they got a little flyer, and on the back of the flyer were these pictures. They decided that they would trace the pictures onto fabric and do embroidery stitches over these. I don't know how long it took them to make it. I don't know who put the sashing on and actually put all the blocks together. But a few years before my mother passed away, she handed me this quilt top. It wasn't completed. It didn't have any backing fabric or cotton batting or binding on the edges. So I finished it off. I bought 1930s reproduction fabrics to put around on the binding. So it's really a nice family heirloom. If you like this video, would you please click on thumbs up, and don't forget to click on that share button to share it with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, go to that button in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Don't forget to enter your email address and click on the little bell so you receive email notifications to your phone. I'm Sherrill, this is Manny. See you next time, and happy sewing!